to me, this is the true, lift the kimono moment? Because the last thing I heard or saw in any of these press releases is how there's going to be some sort of mentoring or tutoring on the, no doubt, what would probably be 8-day, 9-day, potentially 4-game West Coast swing now for Big Ten programs going out there, right? Like that's what's coming. This is This is the professionalizing of sports on the collegiate level.
Well,
would you not agree, Jay?
Yeah, I agree. But this happened 30 years ago, and I believe that NCAA football and NCAA basketball has been essentially the NBA and the NFL for decades now. But now there's no denying it. No reasonable person could say with a straight face that this isn't pro sports, and it has been for a long time. But, the idea that with all this travel the players are going to go through, that it's not the equivalent of the NBA or the NFL is laughably absurd. And it's equally absurd when you hear the recent Pac-12 presidents talk about why they decided to leave for the Big 12 or the Big 10. And they some of them said, well, it's for our players so that they can play on a bigger stage and have more exposure and stuff like that. That's not why they did this. They did this for the money and for the business long-term sustainability of their business prospects, which is fine. I mean, this is like typical American capitalism. And I have no problem with it. I think it's fine. The only thing I have a problem with, all these schools are market competitors against one another in this multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry. They're individual market competitors, and then they group together by a conference, and the conferences compete as market competitors. The only time, and I believe this is true, the only time that the member institutions of the NCAA get together and act in concert is when they're trying to limit athletes. That's the only time they agree with each other. The rest of it, they are direct competitors that are out for themselves, which is fine. But the other stuff is a federal antitrust violation. And they're finding that out from the U.S. Supreme Court, and they're going to find out again in this House versus NCAA case, which goes direct to player compensation.
Well, before we get to that, or maybe this is a bridge to that part of this conversation, Jay Bilas, is the reason why the schools and presidents of the schools, of the universities, are acting in concert about not paying the players is an insane cost. Just take a look at what salary caps are in the NBA and the NFL right now, or it's at least not insane cost, but at least it's much more than what a 4-year, one would say, scholarship is, right? I mean, like if you take a look at what the NIL deals for the top players in both of these sports are right now, and a 4-year full ride scholarship would be what? Maybe if we're being generous, $400,000 over 4 years. And so you take a look at the costs, and that's a no-brainer for schools to not want to do that. The problem is, though, is they're asking the players to act like they're professionals based on schedules and travel and things of that nature. Jay, right?
Yeah, but even if they weren't asking them to do that, it's illegal. I mean, to me, there's a difference between value and cost. So we can argue about what the value of the scholarship is. But when you start thinking about how that cost is allocated, so the athletic department is said to be paying for the scholarship and booking the scholarship as an expense. Well, where does that money go? They pay it to the school. So it's like me saying, when my kids were in the house, they're older now, but when they were in the house, me saying, well, it cost me a certain amount to feed and clothe them and house them. And I take that from one pocket and put it into the other. I mean, none of that makes any sense. And it would be the equivalent of me saying, if somebody saying, hey, you make a lot of money as a broadcaster. No, I really don't. Because, ESPN pays me, but then I got to pay for my house and my cars and my country club and vacations and all that stuff. So at the end of this, I really don't have any money. That's what the schools are saying, is we don't have any money. And it's a lie. They built these gigantic facilities. They have athletic departments that are bigger than the Pentagon. And they like to say, well, our profit isn't as big because of what we did. But the athletic department is booking all these expenses. And the amount of money they pay to the school, they pay them in scholarship. They pay the scholarship money to the school. They pay for building maintenance and food service to the school, and the school charges them an exorbitant price for those things. It's kind of an absurd business model, but so of course, like to your point, since they haven't had to pay the athletes all these years, they talk about, well, it's going to be expensive. Well, it's going to put it's going to make some efficiencies come into play. They're going to say, do we really need 27 staff members for our basketball team? They'll probably cut that down to 12, and some people are going to lose their jobs. But acquisition of talent on the floor is a hell of a lot more important to them when they're going to have to pay than paying all these people to be administrators and all this other stuff. It's horribly inefficient, but I'm sorry. They're going to have to start paying these guys and sign them to contracts because it's going to be required by law. And their only hope is to go to Congress. So Congress says, all right, we'll give you an antitrust exemption so you can continue with our blessing to violate federal antitrust laws you've been doing for over 100 years now. But it's going to be a lot tougher for them to sit before Congress and beg Congress for that when they're cutting all these individual deals, like the blowing up the Pac-12 and USC and UCLA and the Big Ten. I mean, Rich, I had administrators reaching out over the weekend when this all happened, saying this is crazy. And I'm going, no, it's only crazy when somebody else does it. When you did it, it was fine. Like I played in an ACC that had 8 teams, 8, and I grew up in Los Angeles when it was the Pac-8. And then the Big East expanded and took in all these schools for football. Then the ACC raided it. Maryland went to the Big Ten. Nebraska went to the Big Ten. West Virginia's in the Big 12. I mean, this has been going on since the early 90s when Florida State went into the ACC. And it actually went on before that, but just not as high a level. And it's only crazy when somebody else does it. When we do it, it's good business, and it opened up new markets, and look at the sustainability and all that stuff. Then it makes perfect sense. Somebody else does it, then it's crazy. And I just sort of laugh at that reasoning.
How did this individual or individuals, when you responded via text by saying, holding up a mirror, how did they respond to your text? Was it new phone, who dis, or that ended the conversation, or what did you have? What was the response?
No, I mean, I listen to it because I understand for a lot of folks of our generation, it's different. But I could say the same thing. Like, I can't watch baseball anymore. The Astros are in the American League. Are you kidding me? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And I get it. It's different having you. Like, I don't like seeing the Pac-12 go away. But if I really love tradition so much, I would have been really upset to have Duke no longer in the Southern Conference where they started. The ACC started in the late 50s, and it stayed 8 teams up until the early 90s. But now these behemoth conferences are coming in, and things are going to change, and they have changed, but they've changed a lot. And every time something changes, doomsday is around the corner. And, people prognosticate doomsday, and this thing just gets bigger and bigger and in a lot of ways better and better. They said for years, can't have a playoff. And when the media companies dangled $1 billion in front of them, all of a sudden they got a 14 playoff. And now that more billions are coming, they're going to have a 12-team playoff, and it's not going to be a problem. Everybody's going to love it. We hated the bowl games going away. They didn't go away. We have more bowl games than ever. There's a lot. I've really hesitated, Rich, over the years to use the term hypocrisy with college sports because I don't like sort of pinning people with that. I've always said there are a lot of contradictions, and somehow that seems softer. But now you can't avoid the term hypocrisy with the way, based on what these administrators say and then what they turn around and do. It's horribly hypocritical.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.